Welcome back to another episode of For the Client. And in this episode, we've got a case where lots of things turned out right, which doesn't always happen, doesn't typically happen, to be honest with art, but in this case, it did. So, this all started with a competition which I entered for Supermall in collaboration with the Windrush Generation Legacy Association, where they asked us to make a can design. And I entered, made a can design. It didn't win, but months passed and the association got in contact and basically said, we want to use the pieces for a exhibition for Black History Month. I was excited for this, but I wasn't too keen on my piece. I didn't mind the piece, but the problem with it was under so much constraints because of the conditions of the competition that I said, hey, no, I want to redo this. I want to do it better. So what I did was I said, I'm going to make a new piece. When's the deadline? And they said the deadline is in 5 days. I don't typically work that fast, so I don't typically put myself to that sort of challenge unless I absolutely have to, especially not for free. But because it was for Black History Month, because it was for the Windrush Generation Legacy Association, because it was for something that, I think is fairly important and, of course, directly linked to myself, I said, hey, let's give it a go. So I set about and got to work. So at first I was just like, I have literally no idea what I'm going to do for this. I know that it had to be across the theme, standing firm in Power and Pride, which is the theme for Black History Month for this year. It's 2025, if you're watching this later on. But I had no idea how to link this and how to make it link in a way which links to that theme and to Windrush and that generation as a whole. And it was tough. So then I was doodling all these thumbnails as we do, binning a whole lot. And then in the end, I ended up with this weird doodle on a piece of paper that I just came up with while I was watching TV one day. It wasn't based on anything on the TV. It just hit me in the head. I just quickly jotted it down and it just sat on my table for the next 2 days. And yeah, this is what the this is what the drawing looked like. And I said, hey, do you think we can work with this? I think we can make a pretty powerful piece out of this. The idea was that there would be this figure, there would be holding an anchor, specifically the Windrush anchor, because that's symbolism seems to be around quite a lot, especially with the association, this big grey anchor. And I thought, yeah, this could work, but of course I didn't have an anchor. So I had no real point of reference without, of course, just using photographs. So to start the piece, and this is what I would always recommend for pieces of this nature, and to be honest, just work in general if you can, is I just took a photograph. I'm not going to show you the photograph, but yeah, it's a photograph of myself in the pose that I wanted, and I just used a broomstick instead of the anchor itself. And you'll see lots of this if you look at any of the behind the scenes for a lot of animations and movies and artworks and stuff like that. You'll find a lot of photographs or short clips of animators and artists creating their own reference for their pieces. So yeah, I got this photo, uploaded it, and I went right in with the line art and ended up with this. So there we go. We've got the line art right there. And as you can see, I went straight in and modified the thing that was a broomstick into the anchor and really enhanced the foreshortening here with the hand, with the ankle, with the legs, with the knee, to really give that impact, that power, that drama, and really emphasize the power in the individual, in the person, which in this case was me. Moving forward then, I had to think, hey, there was a lot of empty space in the background, so I put in these flags which I linked to the top of the anchor, and you'll see what I do with those later on. So after that, our most logical step is, of course, to add just some flat colors, some flat base colors, just to get a grounding of what we want. I wanted these really like moody, atmospheric, deep colors. This piece is going to be around this anchor and this idea of anchoring oneself in place wherever they are. I wanted those sort of sea vibes, powerful under stormy weather vibes, and that's what I tried to get across. So we have this muted but bluish tone, this cold tone going through it, but there's a power in it. And I build on that. I add shadows, these deep purple shadows, quite warm shadows to counteract the coldness that we've got on the outside. I add another layer of detail this time. And this happened in just one fell swoop. I just worked my way right round. First, working from the left leg right up the arm from the hand, spent quite a while on the face, and then went back um, down the right side. And then afterwards, I just went in with the cloth around the midriff. Now, with the cloth, it was a bit of a weird one because initially I was just going to cover it and then with just something vaguely tonal, and then work into it maybe later. I wasn't sure where I was going to put pattern on it. Wasn't sure where I was going to do with it. As I started playing around with it, I said, "Hey, what if I made this like an amalgamation of the two flags that are pertinent to my background, which is of course the Vincentian flag, from Saint Vincent, and the Jamaican flag. So I just had made a way to measure them, but of course that's not recognizable as anything. So I also decided to add those into the background on these two um, last shapes on the left and right as well. But yeah, it was just rendering it down, putting in all that information, trying to get that dramatic lighting while still keeping these deep bluish cold colors that you know really got across power and that sort of weather in the storm sort of idea. And yeah, I just kept working it and rendering it over the course of the next day and took it to here to completion. Now you can see it at the bottom here. I've got these little flecks coming up. This is using a motion blur that I did this. So I just put in these small little specks of like stone coming from the floor, and then just motion blurred just those individual marks so that it didn't mess with the figure or the anchor itself. Because I didn't want to make it so it was hard to figure out what it was. It's already hard to figure out what the anchor is if you're not familiar with what the Windrush anchor looks like. So I didn't want to make it any more confusing. Yeah, and I put a little bit of a motion blur on the background as well because I didn't want the clouds to distract too much from what was going on with the shapes of the Jamaican flag and the Vincentian flag. After that, I really went in and drove up the color dodge, so the saturation and exposure on the lighter parts to really increase that contrast between the dark and the light. And it's almost like there's a lightning bolt flashing on the right side. But yeah, he's firm, he's steadfast, he's powerful, and that's the aim that I was going for. This idea of no matter where you plonk this figure, wherever you place him, his people, his family, his ancestors, his descendants, no matter where they go, they'll settle, they'll be firm, they'll just get on with it. And that's the sort of story that I was trying to tell through the piece, and I hope it got across. I know that when I sent it across, they seemed quite happy with it, and it looks quite good in person. Standing next to it, it was printed a lot bigger than I thought it would be, and it was printed. I thought it was only going to be displayed on the screen, but it was printed, and I was happy with how it came out. If I'd had a bit more time, and if I did know that it was going to be printed, I probably would have gone a bit further in terms of putting in textures and taking more time on smaller, finer details, because of course they show up a bit more when the image itself is going to be printed on a physical medium. But it still works really well, and from afar, the piece looks pretty impressive. So I was very, very happy with it. It's also set alongside many other pieces, but I think the amazing thing about this exhibition is that all the pieces are so different that they stand alone in sort of their power, and it's really cool to see. But yeah, that was pretty much the journey of how I made this piece, how we went from that small little doodle to this piece. I feel like the client was very happy with this, and I know that a lot of the people who have seen it have said that they think it's a pretty solid piece. So yeah, something a bit different this time. But like I said, it's a situation where even though I had such a short amount of time, things just seem to go right in quick succession. I didn't have to spend ages repainting over certain areas like I often do with quite complex illustrations like this one. Everything just seems to just work itself out. The piece just came together, and the composition with it is a solid piece and I'm happy with how it turned out. But yeah, that was all for this one. Please let me know your thoughts, or if there's any other kinds of jobs that you'd like me to discuss. But yeah, watch out for the next video from us, especially the next video that's for the client. And that's all for now. Until next time.